Blues music is everywhere. We hear it in the office, the market, the car. We hear it so often we barely hear it at all anymore. But about a century ago, blues became so popular that it influenced everything from skirt lengths to politics. It was the soundtrack of the 20th century, present in almost every form of music that followed in its wake. It helped grow the national economy and elevate America's position in the world. And its creators are the U.S. corollaries of Bach, Beethoven, and Brahms. Yet today, few people know the saga of the first completely authentic form of American song. So Blues Alley's on a mission to reacquaint a new era with the people, places, and stories that gave rise to popular music as we know it today. But to uncover it all, we've got to take a journey down Blues Alley. This is the corner of Main Street and Madison Avenue in Memphis, Tennessee. It's not that different from the corner of Main Street in any other city, except that this corner holds a unique place in the development of American culture, because the next step in the evolution of blues music occurred here. This is the place where a young composer named William Christopher Handy first tried his grand experiment, the merging of Southern Delta music with slick instrumentation and professional musicians. And it's perhaps inevitable that it happened in Memphis, a city where people from diverse backgrounds are naturally thrown together in everyday life. If you know anything at all about blues, you know that tales of mysterious doings down at the Crossroads abound. In almost all these legends, though, the Crossroads is an isolated place, two ribbons of dusty highway or railroad intersecting in the middle of a Delta cotton field. In Memphis, however, the Crossroads is not a physical location. The entire city is herself a cultural crossroad. This is, after all, the city that gave rise to both blues and rock and roll. There have been people living in the dense pastel air of this bluff for thousands of years. But the city we know today was established in 1819 and quickly became home to the world's largest cotton exchange, a stock market for a textile staple dating back to the ancient Egyptians and beyond. In the 18 and 1900s, farmers from the Mississippi Delta flocked to Memphis, sold their crops to the cotton traders on Front Street, who in turn loaded them onto riverboats for global distribution. And it was the convergence of all these people from different walks of life that created the cultural crossroad. Think about it. A stock exchange is an urban entity born of finance. The farmers that grew the cotton sold at that exchange belonged to a slower agrarian society. Plantation owners and stockbrokers had amassed enormous wealth, while the sharecroppers who actually grew the cotton remained impoverished. In Memphis, though, none could survive without the other. There was an interdependence among these socioeconomic opposites. And quarters were tied. The lower class got to observe the wealthy elite, close enough to taste that promised pursuit of happiness that remained just beyond their grasp. Country folk took to metropolitan customs, taking the latest fashions and products back home to the Delta. And lo and behold, the upper crust of society discovered they had an affinity for black culture, especially music. Out of necessity and commerce, Memphis had become a crossroad of rich and poor, city and country, black and white. And it's in this environment, just over a century ago, that the next step in the progression of blues music occurred. But to get there, we've got to delve into Southern 20th century politics. In 1909, a Memphis business tycoon named Edwin H Crop decided to run for mayor. In those days, candidates frequently hired a band to promote their campaign and drum up interest, even write a song about their issues. It was kind of a great-grandfather of today's Rock the Vote. Crump, however, got into the race late, and the two most popular black bands in Memphis were already engaged by the other candidates. There was one band available, however, led by W.C. Handy. When Crump hired the band, he commissioned an original campaign song. Handy wrote a tune based on a unique style of Southern music he'd encountered a few years earlier at a train station in Tutwiler, Mississippi. And when the band first performed that campaign song on the corner of Main and Madison in Memphis, people went wild for it. businessmen danced in the street with their secretaries, snarling traffic and creating just the kind of buzz that candidate Crump needed. The song Mr. Crump is likely based on an existing tune called Mama Don't 'Low, and part of the lyric went like this. Mr. Crump don't 'low no easy riders round here. No, Mr. Crump don't 'low no easy riders round here. Well, I don't care what Mr. Crump don't 'low. We gonna barrel house anyhow. Mr. Crump don't 'low it, ain't gonna have it here. Well, Mr. Crump can go and get himself some air. Mr. Crump can go and get himself some air. Not the typical campaign poster. And a lot's been made over the years about whether Crump knew people were singing the lyric, or possibly he didn't understand it. Or could it have even been a wink and a nod, candidate Crump publicly cracking down on Vice while privately conceding that he didn't care, as long as the party stayed on Beale. Either way, it worked. In 1910, Crump was elected mayor of Memphis, and soon became known as Boss Crump, head of a powerful political machine that would control Tennessee politics for the next half-century. He also became a lifelong supporter of black voting rights, a pretty unpopular position in the segregated South of his day. And it somehow seems appropriately American that a political song would kick off the first uniquely American genre of music. But in 1909, blues wasn't quite a genre yet. It would take a few more years for the song Mr. Crump to realize commercial success. But that's a tale in and of itself, and that's where we'll pick up next time on Blues Alley.